resources.
Especially with two
Zeus,
people, you know, it's
yeah, and Zeus was
understandable.
helping us out a bunch, and then he's kind of gotten pulled away, with real life for a while too. So we ended up kind of shrinking a little bit more as well. So that's why we're looking to hire some people. But whenever you hire someone with something like this, they've got a lot of learning to do before they can contribute to anything
Yeah,
necessarily either. So
yeah.
so we're probably looking at, I would say, it's not out of the question that it's still going to be maybe even summer 2016 or so before we're ready to really, launch a Kickstarter and then
Right
kind of
on.
go from there.
Well,
So
that sounds good, man.
I wish it was sooner. I wish it was sooner, but we're
Yeah, but you
making
don't want to rush
some.
it out either. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah, yeah,
a lot of bad things can happen when you do rush things out, and you don't want to do that. So I would
exactly.
rather wait and have something a polished product than something that was rushed out and not be what I expected. So
And we've seen people do Kickstarters way too early too, and it just bites them in the butt every time because uh, people get really
yeah,
pissed off
yeah,
when they have to wait like a year or 2 years or whatever to get
I
what they
funded a
have in
couple.
Kickstarter. So we're going to try our best not to do that. I mean, nothing is ever guaranteed in software development. That my wife would often ask me when I would be doing a programming project and I'd be working like late at night or whatever. She'd call me, "Are you coming home yet?" I'm like, "Oh, no, yeah, I got to finish this one more thing." And she'd ask, "How long?" And I'm like, "Well, maybe another hour." And then like 3 or 4 hours would roll by, and she called me back up, are you coming home?" So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, things just it takes as long as it takes, unfortunately, and that's never a fun answer to give to people, but we'll get there.
No, that's cool. So about to kind of get away from Unity, and I know definitely a lot of people are probably going to ask some more questions on that. About new publishers and stuff. You got Wizards of the Coast, and I know that you've got quite a few Savage Worlds, Deadlands items on there. So
Yeah.
are there any like publishers that you're working with currently that you're trying to hash things out with, like maybe a Green Ronin with Fantasy Age, or maybe a Numenera with Monty Cook Games? Because I know that you can play Numenera already, but that it
Yeah.
was a question that I asked on the forums the other day. So what kind of other
Yeah.
publishers could we be expecting to possibly maybe see in the future?
That's a good question. So the one that I think it's already known is Sasquatch Games. They did the fifth edition, the Prince of the Apocalypse, but they actually have their own stuff coming out for fifth edition that's
Uh,
compatible. It's called Primeval Thule, and so that's one of the ones that we've got an agreement in place for them. And so
awesome.
that's right now. That's only going to be available on Fantasy Grounds too. So that's also something that we're excited about. Um, as far as new publishers, I've got a bunch of kind of smallish publishers out there that are wanting to get some stuff onto the market. That they've been sending me stuff, and their stuff looks great. It's just a matter of kind of I've got to do the curation of it and make sure that it's all good and test it and maybe work back and forth with them a little bit. Then I got to set them up with all the contracts and then get them into our store and push that out there. But there's going to be a couple of like really small stuff, but no real big name publishers really at this point are in the works. I'd say Catalyst Games is one that we've done a little bit of stuff with that I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get for Shadowrun. But I'm not sure if we'll be able to do that or not yet. So, basically, we had a community developer who's done a lot of, done a couple other projects for us that basically built out a pretty robust Shadowrun, rule set, and so we sent that over to the folks at Catalyst to try out. But we would love to get that in place, as a new license, because especially with the stuff that the Harebrained Scheme guys are doing with the actual video games out on Steam that are based in the Shadowrun world, that sort of stuff. I think there's a big draw for that. Some of the other big licenses we'd like to do too. Obviously, the Star Wars, like Edge of the Empire, that sort of stuff, we would love, love, love to get. It's always complicated when you have multiple licensees in place, and you've got one company who's already licensing it from the Star Wars basically is already getting licensed, and then to turn around and try to license that to somebody else gets really complicated really fast. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that anybody's going to be able to crack, just because when you take a pie, you start cutting it too many pieces, then people lose interest pretty quickly about wanting to do something there, and it just, you have to get lawyers involved from like multiple groups of folks to sign off on stuff, then it doesn't always work out. But what sort of game? I'll throw it back to you and to the community. What sort of games are people really hankering for the most that I should be aware of?
Yeah, a lot of people are saying Warhammer and
Marvel
superheroes. I guess that Marvel superheroes is Green Ronin.
Yeah. So we actually have a relationship with Green Ronin for like Mutants and Masterminds right now.
They got their bestiary in there as well, the Pathfinder bestiary.
Yeah, the advanced bestiary, I worked on that one. The Mutants and Masterminds, we had another community developer put that out. It turned out pretty good, but we really need to get another developer, I think, in there to help that really knows that system very well, so that we can kind of do some more updates to it and roll out some of their their threat reports and some of that sort of stuff. So I think Green Ronin's open to us doing some other things. Now with Marvel, again, that presents that same kind of problem where you're not just dealing with Green Ronin. You have to get Green Ronin to also explain the situation to Marvel and figure out how that works for all parties and stuff. So that one, I would love to have that. I mean, that'd be badass.
They're saying One Ring with
I don't know.
multiple people. Cubicle 7's the new One Ring. I know that there's a really nice plugin right now on the forums for the One Ring through Core RPG. There's a new Conan RPG. There's Paizo, with Pathfinder itself.
Yeah. Now Paizo, I've reached out to Paizo year after year after year. We would love to get in with them too. It hadn't happened yet. I'm still hopeful that one of these days it will.
Yeah.
So I would say if people are interested with that, they could probably help out in that situation by asking about it on the Paizo forum and try to bring it up more and more there. Because I think if they realize that there's as much demand as I think there is for it, then they're really pretty good about meeting the demands of their consumers and their community. So and I think we could do a great job with that. I'd love to see the adventure paths in there. And so we already have there's a lot of it's OGL, so it's already got pretty strong support for Pathfinder already. And with the community is able to build modules and share modules because they're full of just OGL stuff. As long as they have the OGL license content in there, they're able to kind of do that pretty freely. So you can already pretty much, even running the adventure paths right now is not bad on Fantasy Grounds. You just have to basically do the maps, scan the maps in or whatever. But all your NPCs are already pre-statted out for you. So that's kind of nice. I think it'd be pretty easy for us to spin up the adventure paths for Paizo.
Do you have any kind of statistics on what are the most popular games on Fantasy Grounds that are played?
Yeah, I do, and I don't know let's see if I have them here. I've shared that out with Ian World a couple times, and I don't know if you've ever seen those, but yeah, we do record whenever basically we get a game launched through the Alias engine. The 4-word name that people basically get assigned for their system. So whenever that happens, it does write a transaction to our database, which tells us the rule set and the IP address, because we have to know the IP address to connect people when they try to plug in that same 4-word number. So we have some basic statistics. It's not real in depth, but we've pulled those numbers a couple times in the past, and not surprisingly, we've got tons and tons of different games that are being played out there, but by far, percentage-wise, the D&D just trumps all. D&D and Pathfinder, and the different variants of D&D. So you got D&D 3.5, you got D&D 4th edition, 5th edition, and Pathfinder. Savage Worlds, I think, is up there pretty good. Let's see if I can find that.
Does it break it down more into editions, or like 5th edition or 4th edition?
Yeah, it's broken it up basically by what we call our rule set. So it'll say 5e or 4e or whatever, and then you've got people's own spin-off versions. So that's where it gets a little bit muddy because people might have modded their own version of a
They're
rule
going to
set.
parse their own. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, I'd have to look around a little bit more, but I could definitely send that to you kind of after the
Yeah, no
fact.
problem.
But
Yeah.
it's been out on like EN World a couple times. There's always a big discussion there. I think the Roll20 folks normally push out their numbers around the same sort of time frame, or it seems like they do it in response to ours, or vice versa, or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting to see the two perspectives of like what people are playing the most, but they overlap quite a bit. I mean, we see a lot of the same sort of stuff.
Oh yeah. So you mentioned Fantasy Grounds is on Steam now. With Steam and like people like myself that have the standalone version, is there going to be anything in the future that is going to allow you to basically take your existing account and link it into Steam to where you can link it into your Steam account and use it that way?
Yeah. So it's already there basically. So
Okay.
what we did when we rolled it out to Steam, we used the third-party license key. So what that allows us to do is basically we send them a ton of license keys, and then they basically sell. Whenever somebody buys one, they hand one out basically up from that pool of licenses. And so, in addition to that, we sell licenses already just directly on our website and on RPG Now as well. And so I collect these on a regular basis, and about once every 1 to 2 months, I'll take all of those license keys and I send them to Steam, and they're set up for free activation. So you can basically go to Steam, use your existing license key. If you bought, I think the last batch I did was maybe on August 23rd or something. On the Steam forums, I've got basically how to activate an existing license. There's a thread on there about that. So if you go to Fantasy Grounds, you go to the Community Hub and the discussions, look for that topic, and that'll tell you how to do it, and it'll tell you the last time that I pushed the licenses over. And every license purchased up through I think August 23rd of 2015 is already in the system. So if you've ever bought a full license or an ultimate license, or an upgrade from the light to the full back when we had that option, then that will be recognized on Steam and will activate it as if you own it on Steam. Now, all Steam's really doing when you launch it is it's just basically launching the same program, but Steam counts it as, oh, you're running the game Fantasy Grounds, and so you can then buy DLC from Steam, or you can buy it from our website. We try to price match it, but occasionally people will see that depending on which country they're in, sometimes it's actually cheaper to buy it on Steam because of the way they don't do like a straight currency conversion. They actually have like some algorithms that they run to figure out like cost of living in different areas. It's pretty cool, actually.
Oh, very good. So you ready to take some questions from all of the viewers? Quite a few people in here. So let's see some questions, y'all. What do you guys have? Someone said Star Frontiers also. I remember playing that back in the middle 80s as a kid. That was an interesting game. Let's see. I know a couple people were asking about the pricing for the new Fantasy Grounds, and talked about the Kickstarter and whatnot. So I have a question from Damini. I don't know if this is something that you'd be able to answer, and you don't have to answer this, but it is there was, I don't even think, Damini, it was something about what was discussed at the Wizards of the Coast meeting that you had attended last month or a month ago. So I don't know if that's something that you can really just...
Probably, I'm pretty sure that's probably... Have you ever seen Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? You know the guy at the end of it where he's like, he tries to buy the Gobstopper recipe, and it's all, this guy's a plant. Whoever asked that question, I'm sure they're a plant to see if I'm going to leak, top secret information here so that they'll knock me off here, I think.
So what were you doing? They're trying to purchase Wizards of the Coast? Because I'm going to, when I hit the Powerball, I'm going over there with a blank check and saying, how much, guys?
That's funny, because there's been some posts over the years about, what would you do if you won the $500 million Powerball, whenever it gets real high. And I've seen people often say, I'd buy Wizards of the Coast, or I'd buy Games Workshop, or, whatever. So, no, I mean, what we did there, we talked a lot about, what I can share is nothing that's top secret or anything, but we talked about what are the next kind of story cycles that are coming out.
Yeah.
What sort of products are in the pipelines, and how far along, and what the release schedule is going to look like, so we can kind of have everything in place and be ready for those to land, because it takes a fair amount of time to get something out the door, and to get something out the door simultaneously with the release of the print product is a challenge as well, because on top of sometimes those products go through, like for instance, the Green Ronin product, the Out of the Abyss, that's the most recent one. So what happened with that one in the background was that, it's going back and forth between Green Ronin and Wizards of the Coast to figure out editing and to get it all laid out perfectly, the way that everybody wants it to read, and that sort of stuff. And then once that happens, then they finally kick it out to the printer. They send us a copy of that as well. And it's in a real raw format. It's like huge, and it's not really easy to work with. It's not nearly as nice as like a PDF or anything like that. Yes, we can get to a PDF, but with all the like raw files and stuff, it's like that file was like 6 gig worth of data that gets dumped out to us, and it's in an InDesign format, which I'm not super proficient with all these like linked attachments and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so we work from that sort of a system to grab all the stuff, and then we end up doing a fair amount of like manipulation of graphics and so forth too, because a lot of the graphics are used for print and for a print medium.
Massive
so
files,
there'll be like mask and stuff like that, so that the picture fits in nicely with the text and all that sort of stuff. And so we have to kind of undo a lot of that sort of stuff to push it out. So that has to happen. Then we have to kick it in through an approval process with Wizards of the Coast. It goes through. It's like a Hasbro system that basically they run through it and look at that, and then that's got like people from all these different departments, so they're really involved with the process basically. And so they go through and they check various things. They check it for art, they check it for legal, they check it for the D&D teams, a couple people there check it, the branding people check it to make sure we follow the branding guidelines properly, that sort of thing. And then on top of that, we also have our internal people that are checking it, and we've gotten a little bit better about that. First couple of products we had, we maybe pushed out a little bit rougher than we would have liked, and then thankfully the community's given us a big list of things that we needed to fix, and we've gone back and fixed them. But what we've done is some of the people that were really good about putting together a really nice detailed list of how to follow and fix, find issues basically. I reached out to some of those people, and they've helped with like the Out of the Abyss. And so that all happened before it ever got released out. And so that happened, went through a couple cycles there before we even sent it over to Wizards of the Coast this time. And then that approval process takes a while, and then finally it gets approved, and then we're ready to go. And we were able to release, on the proper day, as soon as it released.
I got it at 12:15.
Yeah, we were out there right after midnight. Went, boom, clicked the button.
Oh yeah, I was there. I stayed up late just so I could get it, because I was like, man, am I gonna have to scan this damn book and make my own module? Or I was like, thank you for making my life easy, and I just pulled the trigger on it. But I gotta say another.
Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide is out there too, so that's one that we're working on right now, and we got a lot of work left to do on that one. But it's good to know, like we always have to know, like really early on to figure out what sort of stuff's going on, because some of these things right now we've been fairly lucky with it, but oftentimes when a new product comes out, sometimes there's a new game mechanic or something like that that ends up being really important that we have to do a code change for as well. So anytime it goes above and beyond just content to something more unique, then there's like a little wrinkle that we'll have to figure out. Okay, well, how do we do this?
Like the DMG, basically, pretty much, right?
DMG
because of the rule changes and whatnot with mana points and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was another question. Is there any kind of like timeline on the Dungeon Master's Guide, and are there going to be additional rule changes like the spell points and basically whatever is in all of the extra actions and whatnot, all of the magic items? Are they going to be drag and drop and adjust stats and whatnot for just like everything else in 5e?
Yeah, so we have a whole bunch of stuff that we want to do with the DMG, and so I'm going to be able to get some of those things in place before release, but we're probably not going to get all of them in the initial push. So we'll have a few kind of optional rules that we think are probably going to be the most popular ones. We might have a few of those things in there. The big thing that I think we're going to have early on is that it's got the content from the DMG, so it's got a couple new, I think, like classes and stuff like that in there. But it's got lots of random tables and that sort of thing. Those are all loaded in. The magic items, the big thing that I really kind of think is cool that should be getting wrapped up, I think, in about a week. More development time to finish that up. And I think at that point we'll probably push it through our kind of community resources, and that might take another week or two probably to really hash out before we release it, though. So we're probably still about a month out, I think, on that one. But what that's going to do is the item forge is something that I really, really, really want to have in place. And that's just going to be, just nice to have in general. So if you look at the magic items and how they're statted out in the actual DMG, it'll have a lot of magic items. It'll say, like a simple example is like a +2 magic sword, for instance, or a sword of icy blast or whatever, or it'll say +2 magic weapon. It won't even say sword. And so the idea obviously is that you take any weapon that you want. I mean, a human would look at it and say, oh, so yeah, just throw that on top of any weapon, and it'll work. But computers are dumb, so we got to tell them every single thing to do. So at that point, what we're going to see is that you'll have a list of abilities and magical enhancements that you'll be able to dump into kind of one side, and you'll be able to take your items and dump it into the other one. Nice. And so what I really like is you'd be able to spit out a whole almost like a set of magic items that you could even create.
Yeah, just like custom stuff. Wow.
Yeah, and you can basically forge magic items by kind of mixing some of the ingredients in it, and it'll spit out. So you'd take, okay, I'm going to take the the cold property and the +2 magical weapon property, and I'm going to stick that on my scythe. Then now you got a +2 cold magical scythe,
Man,
that
awesome.
Spits out the bottom. So it's simple in theory, but it's just getting that all to work real smoothly and to have a nice intuitive interface that someone won't have to read a manual on. They'll just be able to pull it up and say, oh, I know how to work this, and use it right away. That sort of thing. That's definitely going to be there before we release it. Some of the other things probably going to be a little bit farther down the road, but we'll keep enhancing that too.
How about for dynamic lighting? Have you worked much with the dynamic lighting yet? And is it
dynamic lighting? We've really pushed that back to after Unity because Unity's got such better capacity for handling all the graphic sort of stuff too. Mm-hmm. Plus, we need to make sure it's going to work when we start doing all that stuff with the isometric thing too, because then when you start talking about in 3D space, it's a completely different animal than just blotting out like a 2D plane basically. So we're going to make sure that all works well. Plus, we want to make sure that we do it in a way that doesn't increase the DM prep time too much. So we want to play around with some kind of. We've got a couple cool sort of ideas that I think will help with that. But we'll have to do a lot more prototyping once we get to Unity to figure out if we can really get that to work the way we want. But we'll definitely have dynamic lighting, guaranteed. It's going to be in the program once we get to Unity. May or may not be in the very first release, but it's pretty high on the list because that's one of the things people really, really want to see. So that's going to be in there, and then the big thing is I want to still be able to do the same sort of stuff we do today, where we take a printed product or a PDF version of a product. So if you buy that for whatever game you run, if it has a 2D map, that you'll be able to very easily set up dynamic lighting on a map. And so we're looking at some things like. Actually, I don't want to probably talk too much about it because I don't want to give any of our competitors any ideas. But I've got some good ideas.
You don't have to do that, man. That sounds good, man. Now about with. There's a couple questions about dropping armor in 5e to adjust armor class. Is that going to be anything that's going to be possible down the line with the 5e rule set?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I don't know. I don't want to speak on that one right away because I'm not sure if John and Zeus have figured that part out. But I know that's one that we've talked about a fair amount. I don't know if they've got it planned in the near term or not, but. I'll make a note to ask him about that later on. I'll have to get back to you guys on that
Okay.
one.
And one more thing, a couple other questions have come up about having like an interface inside Fantasy Grounds where you can use those tile sets from like DungeonArts.com, from Greg Taylor, from the other artist websites, where you can basically build maps with tile sets.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's going to be another Unity piece. So
Okay.
that, and then the layers, that goes hand in hand with layers, basically.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you want to be able to have layers, and that builds, it all builds on itself to get to being able to do more 3D type environments. I love all those games like the old XCOM games and all that sort of stuff too, where you had, well, even the new one too, where you can basically tell which layer you're on, and you can go up onto the roof of buildings and stuff, and so. I could definitely see us doing some really pretty cool stuff once we get to Unity on that, where you have, all right, so here's your map, here's, level 1 of all the buildings, level 2, 3.
That's like amazing.
That kind of stuff would be so sweet.
Here, take my wallet here, take my
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I think let's see. I don't want to keep you too late. So, and I do appreciate all of your time and appreciate the information that you've given us about Unity and all of the history of Fantasy Grounds. Really good, man. And I'm glad that I gave Fantasy Grounds another shot out there. So because I was one of those people that purchased it years ago and wasn't very happy with it, and now it's, man, I'm not going back to any other programs. I just enjoy it too much, and I appreciate your time, man. Is there anything else you wanna say?
No, I mean, I just, likewise, I appreciate everybody like you in the community who basically is out there, spreading the good word of what we're doing with Fantasy Grounds, and bringing people in, all the DMs that run the convention games.
FG Con, yeah.
Those guys are phenomenal, and now there's now 3 different conventions that are running. So there's one every single month now, and that's just very humbling that you have people that invest that much of their time and effort to basically promote something just for the pure love of it. So you've got FG Con is coming up next month, and then you've got so it's fg-con.com, I believe, is the website. So check that out. It's all free to play for any of your listeners who have never tried Fantasy Grounds. You don't even need to buy a license. You just get the demo copy, and then what we do is for those who are not familiar with the conventions, they're kind of slated for like a 4-hour slot kind of game, one-off. Normally the pre-generated characters are provided. The GM will run it. You connect to them. Every GM will be promoted to be an ultimate licensed GM at that point in time during the entire length of the convention. We do this every single convention. And then following that, so in October is FGCon. In November is FG Days, which is just a single day at a time, 24 hours basically. It's worldwide. And so that one's going to be a similar sort of a setup. And then following that, back in December, I think, is the next time it's scheduled. It's called Gamer Geekend, and it just finished in September. That they just finished their very first one, and they're setting up for the next one already and getting that all like lined up. And so that's, you can try multiple virtual tabletops for Gamer Geekend, but Fantasy Grounds it featured very prominently there too. Same sort of setup. So we promote everybody up during that period of time so that it's completely free to play. So if you have any gamer people that you guys just used to game with that are still, they haven't moved into the digital world of gaming yet with role-playing games, invite them to one of those things and see if you can get them to just try it out, because everybody that I've ever shown Fantasy Grounds that I've actually brought in and run them through the games, they're always like amazed that, oh, I would have never thought that I could play D&D online and that it would be this smooth and that it would run as well as it does in person. In fact, it runs better because things happen a lot faster. Especially you're talking about D&D 4th edition earlier, and how all the conditions and all that kind of stuff. I mean,
it does everything for you.
Yeah, high level Pathfinder play and stuff too. That's a single game, session in real life can be one combat, and then here you throw it in Fantasy Grounds and the thing just flies through it, a lot faster. So, yeah, I mean, I think just doing what you're doing where you're introducing people to it and just raising the awareness, that sort of stuff is invaluable. It helps our community grow. It helps bring more people into the community that are that are talented and you know, good DMs and good players, and then we also end up getting just a lot of amazing artists and technology, you know, gurus out there too, which contribute in all kinds of ways that you couldn't even imagine.
Yeah. Well,
I could probably show you guys a little bit before I knock off.
Oh, I love it.
You mentioned, let me see if I can pull it up here without.
All right.
So
don't get in trouble now, man. Moon Wizard.
No. I'm just gonna share. I might get in trouble with John. I'm giving away some information.
Oh,
so John
okay.
give me a list of the new features that are going into development right now. And so let me see if I can share a few of these here. So where did it go? Let's see if I can find it now. Okay, I think this is it. Yeah, he basically sends me walls of text sometimes, which are like.
That's what coders do, man.
Yeah, it's there we go. We'll see if that works. Okay, so I'm just going to read off a few things here that jump out at me. So there's an Adventure League extension for 5e, so you can you know, track your Adventure League stuff, gameplay. So that'll be something you can add in.
Nice.
Extra inspiration slots. That'll be an extension. Call of Cthulhu integrates 7e extension for Call of Cthulhu. There's some token widget scaling issues for high-res tokens, and some of the effects and statuses and widgets and stuff like looking a little bit weird if your token was high-res. So that should be fixed. Let's see. We're doing some pretty cool stuff with pins. I don't know if he's ready to share that yet. It may not make it into the next batch, but some really cool features, I think, with being able to share content a little bit better and actually having like public and private pins.
Oh my gosh.
On the maps. That'll be pretty sweet, I think, once we figure out, you know, the best way to do that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, one of my favorites, the language feature for the chat window. I don't know if you've ever looked at that at all before. Right now it's an extension.
Yeah.
That'll be built in. So for all the people that have never tried it, it's gonna be built into it by default, which is pretty sweet. So we're working on a few things. We're trying to get some of the new fonts for 5th edition, and there's some new fonts coming out in the Adventures Guide too. So getting that sort of stuff in. So every time they release these new kind of cool settings and that sort of stuff, they introduce new fonts and new spoken languages and stuff that we'll be able to roll out. That'd be pretty sweet.
Nice. I see another.
Yeah.
You know, there was one question that I seen before I forget about it. It was actually to do with the nighttime and daytime cycles that you actually have within Fantasy Grounds, which is amazing. Is there any way to add weather cycles as well as, you know, sunshiny to rainy and whatnot?
Oh, no, that'd be pretty sweet though. So
there's an idea for you then.
That is. I want to make a note of that.
You got, you know, 100 heads are better than one. That's what I always say.
Well, you know, somebody.
The ideas, you know.
You asked just a second ago. You mentioned about animations and doing stuff like that and doing particle effects. So you could do some pretty cool little particle effects where it's actually raining on your desktop. That'd be pretty tight, actually.
That would be pretty sweet.
Yeah, have leaves blow across the screen when you're like traveling through the woods or something. That'd be kind of cool. We'll have to figure out some cool stuff we can do with that.
Take my money now, man. Take it.
So I'm seeing there's so many stuff. I mean, we've got a ton of stuff for core RPG enhancements, math and dice expressions within brackets, being evaluated within tables. So that's kind of a cool new feature. So, you know, a lot of times it'll say like, you know, on a random encounter table, 2d6 of, you know, whatever. So we can maybe even have it roll the dice there too and tell you how many are appearing. So it doesn't just say, you know, 2d6 goblins. You know, that's something that we could probably do some really pretty cool stuff there. Let's see.
Suspicious Bagman in chat says this guy is already wrecking my wallet.
I do
love it.
Oh, so here's one of the things you mentioned about the Dungeon Master Guide. So diagonal movement in 5th edition, there's optional rules.
The Pathfinder, yeah.
You know, you do it where it's like every you know, what is it?
5 and 10. It'll rotate 5 and 10 every diagonal square.
Yeah, so you know, it kind of alternates like that. Or do you want to do like just diagonal distance is counts as 1 square on movement, so that's the other option. So that'll probably be a toggle preference sort of thing. Let's see, classes with more than 1 hit die per level are now supported. I don't know which one that one is, actually. Think about that. All right, but yeah, lots of 4th edition stuff, 5th edition stuff. I see Pathfinder 3.5 edition stuff in there. Call of Cthulhu, and then some more features that devs can, program towards as well. That is all, stuff that.
Savage Worlds Bloodstains, man. It's all about Savage Worlds Death Bloodstains.
Yep. I've got a few things I got to push out for Savage Worlds too. I've got a big running list of check boxes. It's so funny because I have I don't know if I can show you guys this real quick. Let's make sure I don't have anything major. Oh, let me cover up this one part. There we go. All right, so this is how I work sometimes. This is hilarious. I don't know if you guys can see that. So I do this sort of stuff every day, and so I just basically, it's kind of like in elementary school, and you would say, check a box if you like me or not. so this is how I work, because otherwise my list gets too long, and I'm like, I have to go all old school, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do today?
That's what I do too, man. I'm the same way.
Set a list, and I just try to check off stuff as much as possible. So I've had some stuff that's been sitting on my list a little bit too long. I need to get to, but yeah. I've got a few things here. Necessary Evil, it's got a new updated version that's going to be rolling out pretty soon. Some new token sets popping out, I think. And yeah, I've got a couple other things I can't quite share yet that I'm working on. Some super exciting stuff that is. Man, I can't wait till I can talk to you guys about this other stuff too. But
well, let me know when you want to come back on, man, and I'll have you on anytime. Right. So
cool.
For real.
We haven't been standing still, that's for sure. We've been working to the wee hours of the night every day.
I see. There's always updates, and you can tell that you guys care about Fantasy Grounds, which is you have to have that to be successful. And I can tell just by the way you talk to, as you present yourself with Fantasy Grounds, I can tell that you love the product, and I know that you care about it, and that's awesome. You got me, man. I mean, it's I'm hooked on it now. So, and a lot of the people in chat have really liked what they've seen from me using it. Being a total noob and putting 20 gig worth of assets into Fantasy Grounds and then it not working. I was like, what in the heck is going on? And then one guy's like, dude, you got way too many assets in there. You're clogging up the man. So after I took out 20 gig of assets, Fantasy Grounds worked perfect again.
Yeah. Well, that's one of our known issues we got to solve too. It's some of the architectural decisions work great up to a point, but then modern day usage, people expect to be able to do that. There should be no reason why you couldn't do exactly that and have it work. So we've got to fix that sort of stuff. We just have to quit loading everything into memory when you first launch. So it's not necessary to do it that way. So, but it involves us changing some of the core engine decisions that were made and doing that to make it more robust moving forward. But it's coming.
That's awesome, man. Well, Doug, it was nice to meet you, and hope to have you on again. And anytime you want to come on and talk about FG, man, you're more than welcome to. The floor will be yours, man. So.
Great.
All right, man. Well, thanks again. I appreciate having you, everybody. Appreciated having you, and wish you nothing but the best for Fantasy Grounds, man. I really do.
Great.
All right,
thanks to everybody for listening as well, and for the questions. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Take it easy.
All right, later, man.
All right.